The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. In the darkness of my Denton bedroom, that sound cut through me like a blade. Nobody calls at that hour unless someone is dying. Aunt Scarlett? The voice was so small, so scared. It's dark, I'm alone, please, Aunt. Hurry, my heart stopped. It was Ethan, my 10-year-old nephew. And he was whispering, Ethan, baby, where are you? I shot up in bed, already reaching for my clothes. I don't know. A motel. There's a neon sign that says Pine View. The room smells bad and the door won't open from inside. My blood turned to ice. Are you hurt? Who brought you there? Daddy said I had to stay here tonight. He locked me in. Ethan's voice cracked. Aunt Scarlett, I'm scared. I was already running to my car. I'm coming, baby. Stay on the phone with me.
Pine
View Motel. I knew it. A dump on the wrong side of Denton where drug deals happened in broad daylight. What was my brother doing taking Ethan there? The drive felt like hours, but it was only 15 minutes. My hands shook as I pulled into the parking lot. Room 12. The light was on. I pounded on the door. Ethan! Aunt Scarlett! His voice came from inside, muffled and desperate. The door was locked from the outside. A padlock. My own brother had padlocked his son inside a motel room like an animal. I called the front desk. Open this room now or I'm calling the police. The clerk, a thin man with dead eyes, shook his head. Already paid for. No refunds. This is a child locked inside. Not my problem. I grabbed a metal chair from outside another room and smashed the window. Glass scattered everywhere as I climbed through, cutting my hands and arms. I didn't care. Ethan ran into my arms, sobbing. He was still in his school clothes from yesterday. No food, no water, just terror. Why would Daddy do this? He cried. Against my chest. That's when I saw the papers on the nightstand. My accounting background kicked in as I read through them. Contract documents, financial agreements, and my brother's signature at the bottom. Noah had used Ethan as collateral for a $50,000 debt to Marcus Reed, the most dangerous businessman in North Texas. If Noah couldn't pay by Friday, Ethan would be taken as payment, essentially sold to work off the debt. My hands shook with rage. My own brother. The boy I raised after our parents died in that car crash when he was 16. I gave up college, worked 3 jobs, sacrificed everything to give him a future, and this is how he repaid me. I drove Ethan to my house, my mind spinning. As I tucked him into my guest bed, he grabbed my hand. Don't take me back, Aunt Scarlett, please. Never, I whispered. You're safe now, but I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning I called in sick to my accounting office. Instead, I drove to Noah's house. Celine answered the door, her eyes red and swollen. Where's my son? She asked weakly. Safe, which is more than you can say. I pushed past her into the living room. Where's Noah? He's not here. Celine? Wouldn't meet my eyes. Scarlett, you don't understand the pressure he's under. I understand perfectly. I turned to face her. You let him use your son as gambling chips. It wasn't supposed to happen. Marcus said it was just insurance, that Noah would pay the money back before. Before what? Before your 10-year-old son disappeared forever. Celine collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. But I felt no sympathy. She was Ethan's mother. She should have protected him. Noah came home that evening. I was waiting in his kitchen. Where's Ethan? He demanded, trying to sound angry. But I saw the fear in his eyes. Somewhere you'll never hurt him again. Scarlett, you don't understand. Marcus Reed isn't someone you cross. If I don't deliver what I promised, you promised your son? The words came out like poison. Your own child. Noah's face crumbled. It was temporary. I was going to win the money back at the casino. I had a system. A system. I laughed. Bitterly, just like the system that lost you your job? The system that cost you your house? The system that made you borrow from loan sharks? I'm trying to fix this. By destroying an innocent child? For a moment we stared at each other. The boy I once carried on my shoulders. The teenager I worked myself sick to support. The brother I loved more than my own life. Gone. All of it gone. I want you to remember this moment, I said quietly. Because everything you built, everything you have, everything you think you own, I'm going to take it all away. Noah laughed nervously. You're an accountant, Scarlett. What are you going to do? I smiled. You're about to find out. That night, I sat in my home office until 4 a.m., going through every file I had on Noah's business. 7 years of tax returns, bank statements, invoices, payroll records, everything. What I found made my stomach turn. Noah hadn't just been gambling away his family's future, he'd been stealing it. Falsified invoices to clients, claiming materials that were never delivered. Skimming money from employee paychecks. Even taking advance payments for jobs he never started. But that wasn't the worst part. Hidden in a folder marked insurance claims, I found something that made my hands shake with rage. Noah had been filing fake worker injury reports, collecting insurance money for accidents that never happened. He'd been using the names of undocumented workers who couldn't fight back. My brother wasn't just a gambler, he was a criminal. I made copies of everything, then I called Marcus Reed. Mr. Reed? This is Scarlett Voss, Noah's sister. I understand you have a business arrangement with my brother. Lady, this doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. See, Noah put up collateral that doesn't belong to him. My nephew is now under my protection. Silence on the line. But I have a better proposition for you, I continued. Noah owes you $50,000, correct? What if I could get you 5 times that amount? I'm listening. Noah has been stealing from clients and insurance companies for years. I have the financial records to prove it. With the right legal pressure, we could force him to liquidate everything. His business, his remaining assets, even his wife's jewelry collection. And why would you help me destroy your own brother? Because some betrayals can't be forgiven. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You got balls, lady. I respect that. You have 2 weeks. The next morning, I walked into the IRS office in Dallas with a box full of evidence. The agent, a stern woman named Patricia Hayes, looked through the documents with growing interest. This is extensive fraud, she said after an hour. We're talking about hundreds of thousands in unpaid taxes, false claims, identity theft. How long before you can act? We'll have agents at his business by tomorrow morning. I smiled. Perfect. That afternoon, I visited 3 of Noah's biggest clients, construction companies who had paid him for materials they never received. I showed them the invoices Noah had submitted to them versus the actual purchase records. He charged you for premium steel beams but bought cheap aluminum, I explained to the first client, Jim Morrison of Morrison Construction. The price difference? $40,000. Money that went straight into his gambling fund. Jim's face turned red.
That
son of a bitch. We've been having structural problems on 2 buildings because of inferior materials. I thought you might want to know before the news breaks. By evening, Noah had lost his 3 biggest contracts. His business phone was ringing nonstop with angry clients demanding refunds, but I wasn't done. The next day, I drove to the offices of Channel 8 News. The investigative reporter, Jennifer Bennett, was known for exposing white-collar crime. I have a story for you, I told her. A contractor who's been stealing from clients while using his own child as collateral for gambling debts. Jennifer's eyes lit up. Do you have proof? I handed her a flash drive. Everything you need. The story ran that night. Local contractor uses son as collateral for gambling debts. Flashed across screens all over North Texas. Noah's mugshot from an old DUI arrest filled the screen as Jennifer detailed his crimes. My phone rang within minutes. What have you done? Noah screamed into the phone. What you should have done years ago, I replied calmly. Faced consequences. They're saying I'm a child abuser. I'm getting death threats.
good. Scarlett.
Please, I'm your brother. No, I said. Brothers don't sell their children. The FBI arrived at Noah's office the next morning. I watched from across the street as they carried out boxes of evidence. Noah was led away in handcuffs, his face hidden behind his jacket. But that was just the beginning of his fall. I had one more card to play. Celine's father, Robert Hartwell, was a wealthy oil executive who had never liked Noah. He'd always thought Celine married beneath her station. Learning that his grandson had been used as collateral was the final straw. I called him personally. Mr. Hartwell? This is Scarlett Voss, Noah's sister. I think you need to know what your son-in-law has done to your grandson. The meeting took place in his downtown Dallas office. Robert Hartwell was a tall, silver-haired man who commanded respect with just his presence. When I finished explaining everything, his face was stone. You're telling me Noah signed a contract offering my grandson as payment for a debt? I have the documents here. He studied the papers in silence. Finally, he looked up. What do you want from me? Help Celine get free. And make sure Ethan never has to see his father again unless he chooses to. Done. He reached for his phone. I'm calling my attorney. Celine and Ethan will be protected. Within days, Selena had filed for divorce with the best lawyer in Texas. She and Ethan moved in with her parents while the legal proceedings began. But Noah's troubles were just starting. The insurance fraud investigation uncovered even more crimes. Noah had been running multiple schemes for over 2 years. The FBI found evidence of bribery, tax evasion, and money laundering. He'd been paying off building inspectors to approve substandard work. He'd been selling construction materials on the black market and reporting them as stolen. He'd even been running a side business selling fake construction permits to contractors who wanted to skip building inspections. But the worst discovery came when Agent Rodriguez called me 3 days into the investigation. Miss Voss, we need to ask you some questions about your brother's business practices. We found something disturbing in his financial records. I met her at the FBI field office in Dallas. Agent Rodriguez was a sharp-eyed woman with graying hair and the kind of steady presence that made you trust her immediately. Your brother has been operating what we call a labor trafficking scheme, she explained, sliding a folder across the table. He's been recruiting undocumented workers, promising them steady jobs and legal work permits. Instead, he's been forcing them to work for below minimum wage and threatening to report them to immigration if they complained. My hands shook as I read through the evidence. Names, addresses, work contracts written in Spanish that promised one thing but delivered another. Some of these workers have been sending their entire paychecks to Noah, thinking they were paying for illegal documentation that would never come, Agent Rodriguez continued. We're talking about modern slavery, Miss Voss. Your brother has destroyed the lives of dozens of families. I thought I couldn't hate Noah more than I already did. I was wrong. What happens to these workers now? I asked. We're connecting them with immigration attorneys and victim services. Some may be eligible for special visas as trafficking victims, but the damage is done. Years of their lives stolen, families separated, children growing up in poverty while their parents' wages went to fund your brother's gambling addiction. The scope of Noah's crimes was staggering. The FBI estimated he'd stolen over $800,000 through various schemes over 3 years. Money that should have gone to workers' families, to building safe structures, to running an honest business. Federal agents raided his house while he was in county jail awaiting trial. They found a hidden safe behind a false wall in the basement, containing cash, fake documents, and records of illegal gambling operations. But they also found something that broke my heart completely. A shoebox full of letters from Ethan. Dear Daddy, one read in a child's careful handwriting. Mama Scarlett says you're sick, and that's why you can't come home. I hope you get better soon. I miss playing catch with you. Another, Daddy, I scored 2 goals in soccer today. I wished you were there to see it. The other kids' daddies were all cheering. When you come back, will you come to my games? And the most recent one, dated just a week before Noah's arrest. Daddy, I know you're not sick. Tommy's mom told him you're in trouble with the police. I don't understand what you did wrong, but Mama Scarlett says sometimes adults make bad choices. I still love you anyway. Love, Ethan. I sat in Agent Rodriguez's office and cried reading those letters. This innocent child pouring his heart out to a father who had tried to sell him to cover gambling debts. We found over 40 letters, Agent Rodriguez said gently. Your brother never mailed any of the responses he wrote back. She showed me Noah's attempted replies, sitting unfinished on his desk. Lies, mostly. Promises he couldn't keep. Explanations that made no sense. In the end, he couldn't even lie convincingly to his own son. The trial lasted 6 weeks, not 3 as I had originally thought. The prosecution brought in victims of Noah's labor trafficking scheme. Men and women who had worked 16-hour days. In dangerous conditions, believing they were earning money for their families while actually funding Noah's casino visits. Maria Santos, a mother of 3 from Guatemala, testified through tears about how she'd worked construction jobs for Noah for 2 years, sending what little money she received home to her children, not knowing that Noah was keeping 80% of her wages. I believed him when he said the work permits were expensive, she said through an interpreter. I believed him when he said I just needed to be patient. My children went without food while this man gambled away the money I earned. Carlos Mendez, a 19-year-old from El Salvador, described how Noah had promised him construction training and legal status. Instead, Noah forced him to work on dangerous roofing projects without safety equipment, paying him $3 an hour under the table. When I got hurt and couldn't work for a week, he threatened to call immigration. Carlos testified. He said if I complained, my whole family would be deported. Listening to their stories, I realized that my revenge against Noah had become something much bigger. These people deserve justice too. They deserve to have their wages restored, their dignity recognized, their suffering acknowledged. The defense attorney, a slick-talking man named Peterson, tried every trick in the book. He claimed Noah was the real victim, driven to desperation by gambling addiction. He argued that Noah never intended to hurt anyone, that he was just a man in over his head who made poor choices. The prosecution's response was devastating. Intent doesn't matter when children go hungry, prosecutor Janet Williams told the jury. Intent doesn't matter when families are torn apart. Noah Voss systematically exploited vulnerable people for years, stealing their wages while they worked in dangerous conditions. And when that wasn't enough to fund his gambling addiction, he attempted to use his own child as collateral for a debt. This is not the behavior of someone who made a few poor choices. This is the behavior of a predator. During victim impact statements, I watched Noah's face as person after person described how his actions had destroyed their lives. He sat stone-faced through most of it, but I saw his mask slip once when Maria Santos described how her 8-year-old daughter had asked why Daddy couldn't send enough money for school supplies. That's when Noah looked directly at me across the courtroom. For just a moment, I saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Not self-pity, not anger, but actual understanding of what he had done. It was too little, too late. The judge sentenced Noah to 12 years in federal prison, not 8 as I had originally stated. 2 additional years were added when the labor trafficking charges were upgraded to human trafficking. He would also owe over $900,000 in restitution to his victims. Money he would never be able to pay back in his lifetime, Mr. Voss. Judge Martinez said during sentencing, "You have shown a complete disregard for human dignity. You exploited vulnerable workers, stole from your clients, defrauded the government, and endangered your own child. The court finds no mitigating factors that would justify leniency. You will serve the full 12 years without possibility of early parole." 12 years. Ethan would be 22 when his father was released. An adult who could make his own decisions about whether to have a relationship with the man who had tried to trade him for gambling money. After the trial, Marcus Reed approached me in the courthouse hallway. "Impressive work," he said. "You destroyed him more thoroughly than I ever could have." He destroyed himself. "I just made sure everyone saw it. What happens to the boy now?" I looked through the courthouse windows to where Ethan waited with Selene and her parents. He gets to be a child again. But there was one more twist I hadn't expected. 2 weeks after Noah's sentencing, Selene came to my office. She looked healthier than I'd seen her in years. Her father's money had given her access to therapy, and she was finally dealing with years of emotional abuse from Noah. "I need to ask you something," she said, sitting across from my desk. "Would you consider becoming Ethan's legal guardian?" I blinked. "What? I'm his mother and I always will be." But I'm not strong enough to be his primary caretaker right now. Maybe not ever. You saved him, Scarlett. You fought for him when I couldn't. Celine, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Look at what you've accomplished in the past month. You took down a criminal enterprise single-handedly. You protected Ethan when everyone else failed him. He needs someone like you in his corner. I thought about my quiet life, my small accounting office. The loneliness I'd carried since Jonathan's death 5 years ago. What would that mean, exactly? He'd live with you. Go to school here in Denton. I'd visit regularly, but you'd make the day-to-day decisions. My father has already agreed to set up a trust fund for his expenses. I looked out my office window toward the elementary school where Ethan would go if he lived with me. A normal life, safety, love. I'll do it, I said. The legal paperwork took 6 weeks. During that time, Ethan stayed with me while Celine prepared for the transition. He fit into my life like he'd always been there. We established routines. Breakfast together before school. Homework at the kitchen table while I made dinner. Bedtime stories about brave knights and dragons defeated by smart princesses. Aunt Scarlett? He asked one evening as I tucked him in. Are you sure Daddy can't come get me?
He can't hurt you anymore, baby. The law won't let him.
Good. He curled up with the stuffed bear I'd bought him. I like living with you better anyway. 6 months after that terrible night at the motel, I stood in the doorway of Ethan's new bedroom in my house. He was doing homework at his desk, safe and loved and protected. Aunt Scarlett, he called. Can you help me with this math problem? Of course, baby. As I sat beside him, I thought about justice. Noah was serving his sentence in federal prison. Marcus Reed had recovered his money plus interest from the liquidation of Noah's assets. Selena was rebuilding her life with therapy and her family's support. And Ethan? Ethan was learning to trust again. Learning that love doesn't come with conditions or prices. Learning that some people will move heaven and earth to protect the innocent. The transformation in him over 6 months was incredible. The scared, trembling boy I'd rescued from that motel room was gone. In his place was a confident 10-year-old who laughed easily and slept peacefully. He'd started calling me Mama Scarlett without being asked. It made my heart swell every time. Mama Scarlett? Ethan looked up at me with eyes just like Jonathan's, the same gentle spirit my late husband had possessed. Do you think Daddy will ever come back? I thought carefully about my answer. The truth was, Noah would be released in about 7 years. With good behavior. The question was whether he would be a different man by then. I don't know, sweetheart. But I know this, you will never, ever be in danger again. Not while I'm alive. Ethan nodded and went back to his homework. Outside, the Texas sunset painted my windows gold. In this house that I'd built with my own hands and my own heart, we were safe. We were family. 3 years passed quietly. Ethan thrived in school, made friends, played Little League baseball. I watched him grow from a traumatized child into a happy, confident teenager. Noah wrote letters from prison. Long, rambling apologies that I read but never answered. He'd found religion behind bars, claimed he was a changed man. Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. It didn't matter anymore. Celine visited monthly, taking Ethan to dinner or movies. She'd grown stronger over the years, found her own apartment, started working again. Our relationship had healed too, built on a foundation of shared love for Ethan rather than old resentments. He's happy, she told me after one of their visits. Really happy. I made the right choice. We all did. The day Noah was released from prison, he came to my house. I watched through the window as he stood on my front porch, looking older, grayer, smaller than I remembered. I didn't answer the door. Ethan stood beside me at the window. Is that him? Yes. I don't want to see him. You don't have to. Noah stood there for 20 minutes before finally walking away. He never came back. Later, I learned he'd moved to Oklahoma, found work in a lumber yard, lived quietly in a small apartment. He sent Ethan a birthday card every year, but never asked for visits or phone calls. Maybe he really had changed. Maybe he understood that some damage can't be undone, some trust can't be rebuilt. Or maybe he was just too afraid of what I might do if he tried to disrupt our lives again? Either way, Ethan was safe. The phone would never ring at 2:47 a.m. with terror in a child's voice again, not on my watch. Justice, I learned, isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about protection. Sometimes it's about proving that real love always wins. In the end, sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. Noah thought he could use love as a weapon. Instead, he learned that love, when truly felt, becomes the strongest shield of all. I kept my promise. I tore down his empire piece by piece. But more importantly, I built something better in its place, a home where a little boy could grow into a confident young man, knowing he was worth more than any debt, more than any gamble, more than any cruel bargain. That night, as I tucked my 19-year-old son into bed, yes, he still let me, though he pretended to be embarrassed. He whispered, "I love you, Mama Scarlet. I love you too, baby." Forever and always, justice served. Family protected. Love victorious. And somewhere in Oklahoma, Noah Voss lived with the knowledge that he'd traded the most precious thing in his life for nothing, and lost everything in return. That was revenge enough.